It's draft season, people, and we are hooking you up with 8 last-minute championship draft tips. Number 1 is to read the board before every pick. This is really crucial once you get past round 4, but what you need to start doing is look at the teams that are about to draft after you. What is their team construction? What is the current positions that they need to fill? After you see what they need, it should help you make the right pick for that round. I'll give you a very realistic scenario. We just did a mock draft on this channel yesterday. You can go watch it. I was drafting at the 4 spot, and I had a tough decision to make in the 9th round. It was the 9.4, and my next pick was 17 picks away. I already had solid depth at the running back and wide receiver position. However, I had not drafted a quarterback or a tight end yet. I looked at the draft board and I saw only 1 out of the next 8 teams needed to draft a quarterback. But there were still 2 quarterbacks on the board that I am comfortable being my starting quarterback in Ryan Tannehill and Matthew Stafford. However, 3 of those 8 teams did need to draft a tight end. So when I looked at the board, I saw Logan Thomas there, and I thought to myself, if I don't draft Logan Thomas, he's probably not going to make it back to me. But all these teams except for 1 have their quarterback. So I selected Logan Thomas, and you can see Matthew Stafford still fell to me at the 10.9. You should probably be considering this with every pick. Look at the teams who are going to pick after you before the next pick that you have and see what they need. That should help you make some relatively difficult decisions much easier. Number 2 is know your league mates. When you know their tendencies, where they like to draft certain positions, what teams they're fans of, it's much easier for you to know when certain players will probably go off the board. If you're in a random league with people that you don't know, that's okay. It's not ideal, but start a conversation with people in the chat. Say, hey, what's everyone's favorite team? What strategies are you guys doing? Try to probe a little bit and get as much information as possible. You want as much intel going into a draft on the people you are drafting with. Number 3 is to use tier-based drafting. I know we are all running back heavy people. We want to get the running backs in early and often, but oftentimes you might not actually be getting the best value that's on the board. For example, in the 3rd round of drafts, I would much rather have a tier 1 wide receiver or tight end than a tier 3 or 4 running back. You have to know where the value is. What we often get too caught up in is filling positional needs. While you do need to fill each position, let that happen naturally when the value is there. Logistically, tier-based drafting is just using rankings that have tiers already in them. There's a ton of platforms out there that allow you to enter your own tiers into rankings. Alternatively, we do have tier-based rankings, patreon.com/fantasylandfam. Sign up to any tier and those are yours. Number 4 is don't get caught up in positional runs. This typically happens with the quarterback or the tight end position. And what happens is someone drafts a quarterback and then you see 5 of them go off the board, or someone drafts a tight end and you see 3 go off the board back to back to back because people are worried about getting the right player. Don't get caught up in those runs. Look at the board, see what is the most valuable player available, and go from there. Oftentimes when you're the one to stop the run, it brings a calm presence over the draft board and allows other people to draft the way they normally would, which means that one position isn't being overdrafted. Number 5 is don't draft an early quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is going to go in the 1st or 2nd round of your home leagues, but you will not be the one drafting him. Repeat after me. I will not draft Patrick Mahomes. Even if you don't want to do a late round quarterback strategy, there is still so many valuable quarterbacks that go from rounds 5 to 8 to 9 to 10. Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson. We love Patrick Mahomes and we have him as our quarterback 1, but there's a real possibility that he doesn't finish there. So don't reach for him. For example, remember where Lamar Jackson was drafted last year in the 1st round. That did not return good value for anyone who drafted him there. There are a ton of good fantasy quarterbacks this year, and good quarterbacks are much easier to find than any other position. Number 6 is draft for upside late. Later on in these rounds, you want to find those rookies or young players who don't necessarily have a role defined just yet, but there's a pathway for them to be very fantasy relevant. Guys like Elijah Moore, Rondale Moore, Rashad Bateman, Amon-Ra St. Brown, a lot of these players whose roles aren't quite defined just yet, but have an opportunity to be a big part of their offenses. Playing it safe is necessary, but later on in the draft, it's typically worth it to take a little bit more of a risky upside type of approach. Number 7 is to get a big 3 tight end in the first 3 or punt the position entirely until rounds 8 onwards. In the first 3 rounds, get Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, or George Kittle. And if they're not available, punt on the position until the 8th round. Guys in that second tier are still going in the 4th, 5th round, but we don't know for sure if they're going to return that value. TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, Noah Fant, Dallas Goedert. These are guys that we're personally not drafting because it's going to take too much value to get them. Ideally in the 8th, 9th, 10th round onwards, we want to get guys like Logan Thomas, Robert Tonyan, Mike Gesicki, Tyler Higbee, Jonnu Smith. You can get these guys later on in the draft and still build a great roster around them. Number 8 is to know the latest news. There's always one guy in every draft who takes a player who's suspended, who's retired, who's not on a team, who's still a free agent. It always happens. Don't let that be you. There's many logistic ways to avoid this. Number 1, we would say, is get a Twitter account and follow some really good accounts. We have a Twitter, it's at fantasyland_FB, but also one that we would heavily endorse is at 32beatwriters. These guys pretty much tweet out everything that you're going to need to know for your fantasy football drafts. Also, platforms like the Sleeper app have great alerts inbuilt, so just make sure that you have those notifications turned on. Lastly, make sure you have a good podcast or YouTube channel to follow. Subscribe to us if you would like to. We also have a podcast platform that's available worldwide, Fantasyland Football. And one last little extra tip for you, have fun. This is the best game on the planet, so don't stress too much. Go kill it this year. Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch
now,
it.
You can also subscribe.
Right now.
If you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/fantasylandfam.